Max Verstappen claimed his 41st career pole position, his fourth consecutive one in Japan. The Red Bull driver set an incredible time of 1 minute 26.983, just 12 thousandths ahead of McLaren's Lando Norris. With a Red Bull RB21 that is clearly inferior to the MCL39, the Dutchman once again demonstrated that he is an absolute phenomenon. Charles Leclerc's Ferrari took the fourth position, while Lewis Hamilton is only eighth, even behind the Racing Bulls of Isack Hadjar. There are circuits that make the difference, among the cars but especially among the drivers. Enzo Ferrari claimed that there was an equal relationship between man and machine, but he also emphasized how Gilles Villeneuve was able to alter it to his advantage. Those were different times. Then came Ayrton Senna. Today there is Max Verstappen, who brought Red Bull to pole position in Suzuka with a marvel that will be remembered. Exceptional. Will it be enough to win tomorrow? Who knows? The differences between the cars have become so minimal that anything is possible, but the McLaren cars remain the favorites, with Lando Norris starting in the front row next to Max Verstappen, and it will be a problem and a test for him, while Oscar Piastri will start from third alongside Charles Leclerc. This is the first time this year that Ferrari finds itself so far ahead in qualifying, and also the first time that a Maranello car is so close to the absolute best car, the McLaren. Then, finally, Ferrari has left Mercedes behind, something that had not happened at the Albert Park circuit in Australia and at the Shanghai International Circuit in China. These are three signs of improvement that were much awaited after the embarrassment in China, with two cars disqualified at the finish for technical irregularities. The progress, or at least some slight progress, for Ferrari came from Charles Leclerc, who had good reasons to perform at his best at Suzuka, in the sense that on such a demanding track, he desperately wanted to be ahead of Lewis Hamilton to restore certain internal balances and fix imperceptible magnetic forces that linger within the team. Beating the seven-time Formula One world champion by 3/10, right in Japan, a circuit where the British driver has always been very strong, was something that the Monegasque driver needed for his morale. We will see what happens during the race, with the threat of rain. But while Max Verstappen did something exceptional, it must be emphasized that Charles Leclerc also brought Ferrari a bit further than expected. While Lewis Hamilton got lost, he had a different setup from his teammate, although he has such a racecraft that he could still climb up during the race. As for Mercedes, it should be noted that George Russell did his best, but next to him in the third row will be the surprising Kimi Antonelli, who, in the University of Formula One, sent a message about his future potential, given that he is currently in a learning phase and nothing more should be asked of him. Ferrari's goal was to secure at least the second row at the 5.807-kilometer Suzuka circuit, and Charles Leclerc achieved that, positioning himself ahead of the threat from George Russell and thus entering the battle for the podium tomorrow. Lewis Hamilton disappoints in qualifying, as the eighth-place finish of the seven-time world champion needs to be carefully analyzed, even behind a Racing Bulls car. The race is long, but it will be complicated for those starting from the middle of the pack. At this point, the Japan Grand Prix becomes an open race with two different scenarios. In case of rain, Max Verstappen will compensate for the gap that Red Bull still has compared to McLaren with his superior driving. Ferrari is watching from the sidelines, but only with a dry track will we understand where they really stand. A test that the Maranello team, the drivers, and the fans are waiting for. It is time to turn the page after Shanghai. The prerequisites seem to be there. Let's hope for confirmation. There are several unknown factors relating to tomorrow's race, but there are also plenty of opportunities, which is always the case when rain is expected. Added to this is the fact that no driver has managed to do proper long runs because of the many red flags in free practice. Even if the race could be run completely or partially in the dry, it's not clear how the cars will manage their tires, especially if it remains relatively cool. On this high-speed track, the wind could also play an important role. Total concentration and rapid adaptability to the conditions could make the difference on Sunday in the Japanese Grand Prix. We also want to point out that Ferrari Jr. Oliver Bearman deserves praise as well, because it was his first time at Suzuka, but he managed to take his Haas into Q3, delivering a resounding lesson to teammate Esteban Ocon, who was eliminated in Q1. The Ferrari Driver Academy member will line up in 10th position, even behind Alexander Albon's Williams, which nonetheless deserves credit for securing Grove's third consecutive Q3 appearance. A special mention for Oliver Bearman, as he even helped Charles Leclerc with a tow during his first Q3 lap, the one that gave the Monegasque driver the P4 spot for the Japanese Grand Prix grid. Looking back on Lewis Hamilton's performance on Saturday, when thinking of Suzuka, one cannot help but think of the 7-time Formula One world champion, a driver who over the years has truly made a difference on the Japanese circuit, collecting numerous victories and memorable poles. It's no coincidence that Suzuka is one of his favorite tracks. However, today, the Briton was missing that extra something, that click that would have pushed him further up the grid. The issue lies in two areas, one regarding the setup and the other about his driving, as the 7-time world champion has still not found the necessary confidence in the SF25 in high-speed corners, as shown in other races earlier in the season. On a track like Suzuka, feeling the limit is essential. Being able to piece together the elements of the puzzle can really make the difference on the clock, and consequently on the grid, perhaps more so than on other tracks. With the first sector consisting of a sequence of corners and the other two sectors featuring both slow sections and medium high-speed corners, getting into that narrow window and finding the perfect feel can play a key role. That's what Lewis Hamilton was missing today when it came to finding those last tenths at the limit. The Ferrari admitted at the end of the qualifying session that obviously this was not what he was looking for in the car, otherwise he wouldn't have ended up in 8th place. But he acknowledged that Charles Leclerc did a great job. He mentioned that throughout the weekend they worked hard, as they always do every weekend. On one hand, he added, it was nice to see his Maranello teammate so close to the front row, as he's very fast at Suzuka. Lewis Hamilton believes he didn't manage to extract all the potential from the SF25, partly due to a setup he hopes will offer greater benefits in the race compared to his teammates. But this is only part of the analysis. Without that magical feel, it is hard to find the time, especially if, like the 7-time world champion, you still lack that little extra confidence in the high-speed corners, like those in the first sector, or where the car needs to be forced in, like at the entry of Denier or Spoon. It's precisely in these sections that Charles Leclerc gained most of his advantage. It's no coincidence that Lewis Hamilton has struggled with understeering during the entire Japanese weekend. Lewis Hamilton added that, on his part, he did not manage to extract all the potential from the SF25 car and that they needed to examine the situation. He explained that they chose two different approaches regarding the setup. The British driver believed that Charles Leclerc's setup might be better for a single lap, while he hoped his own would pay off in the race. However, he concluded that, in general, he was happy with the decision and the direction he had taken and acknowledged, though that he struggled with the front end, which is why he had that snap in Q3.